How you want to do roll call? Everybody's here.
All 4 members are present except Ms. Dreisbach.
Ms. Dreisbach did let Dr. Gibson and I know that she would be running late. Let's have Pledge of Allegiance. It's good to see everyone who showed up. Thanks for attending. New staff and new staff members, welcome. Guess we'll get around to your recognition sooner or later. Usually we would have the Vice President's recitation, but since she's currently running late, let's go to the Board recitation of district belief statements.
All right, we have fewer this month, so let me do the math here real quick. Anyway, we believe all students have the capacity to learn and excel.
We believe a safe and supportive environment is paramount to learning. We believe in living our core values of leadership, character, commitment, service, and learning.
And authentic teaching creates empowered, inspired learners prepared for our changing world. We believe technology is a relevant tool that enhances learning and in and beyond the classroom.
We believe in a professional learning community that fosters collaboration for continuous improvement.
We believe transparent, clear, and timely communication among all is critical to success. We believe measures of our success go beyond standardized testing, and we believe that public education is defined by the local community with limited state involvement.
Thank you very much. Now we will have public comments. In order to provide consistency and fairness to all individuals, public comments will be heard in accordance with Board Policy BED Local and procedures outlined in Administrative Regulation BED. Comments should be limited to topics such as policies, curriculum, and facilities. Any direct criticism of a specific employee will not be heard during public comments and should be considered separately as provided in Board Policy. In this context, individuals are cautioned, I totally forgot my glasses, to not identify any employees by name or any combination of words or description which could identify the employee to another individual. Public comments will be limited to individuals who sign up to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting before the board meeting is called to order. Delegations of more than 5 persons shall appoint 1 person to present their views. An individual who signs up to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting may not relinquish their time to another individual. No public comments shall exceed 5 minutes. To ensure compliance with time limitations, a yellow card will be held up by the board secretary at 4 minutes, and a red card will be held up at 5 minutes. Dr. Patrisky. All right, I'm ready. Thank you, Dr. Patrisky.
Good evening, Dr. Gibson, President Westbrook, members of the SCUCISD School Board. I'd like to address some action items that you have on today's agenda. The one deals with the tax rate. Administration is asking for a vote today, and if that vote is to increase the tax rate, the following action item, when you're asking for a proposal for a public meeting to be held August the 16th of 2018, I recommend that public meetings be held prior to any kind of vote for a tax rate increase. Other concern that I had, expenditures. Last month it was suggested that perhaps a forensic audit be done. Come to find out that $8 million plus was spent on on consultant fees for this past school year. On June 19th of 2018, Northeast ISD passed a salary rate increase for staff at a cost of $8 million, and yet this school district spent it on consultant fees. Northeast ISD has a lot more employees than this district has, so it just floors me that that much has been spent on consultant fees. If you are going to go for a tax rate increase, expenditures, you need to look at that very, very carefully of what's been done and modify that. Salaries, last month there was also a question if there was a difference between a one-time payment and an actual salary scale increase. On March 8th of 2018, administration did present to campus staff, and when asked this very question by a teacher, administration responded that yes, there was a difference between a one-time payment and also a salary scale increase. The salary scale increase would allow the TRS formula for staff not to be flatlined, whereas a one-time payment would result in a TRS formula flatline. So I saw that that was another issue that's brought here on the agenda. These are serious things. It's just amazing. I think we could do better than this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, there is a, is there any call for board recess? There's no need, right? We just, all right. We'll forego the board recess. Any correspondence? No correspondence. There was one in the Schertz magazine. I was happy to see that Texas school districts named the best for music education. I think we were, what, one of 50 in the state for Schertz-Cibolo-Universal City Independent School District. So, Dr. Leip and Mr. Petrisky, thank you very much for the, I think this was in our, what was it? It was in a magazine we received from TASB, so great job. Report on board advocacy, trustee visibility and commitment within the district community and with other governmental entities.
I don't have anything to report this month, Mr. Westbrook.
Oh, I had a couple of things. I actually got my Texas Education Code training out of the way Wednesday, thanks to La Priscilla to keep me on track for that. Participated in the 4th of July picnic, lost at least 3 pounds on that one. Haven't gotten it back yet. So my wife's trying to feed me, get that back. So, but it was a good time. I think it was a good time had by all. Everybody seemed to appreciate it, and look forward to doing it next year. Thank you.
I also participated in the parade on the 4th of July. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad it wasn't a longer route. I attended the Tri-County Chamber luncheon, the Chamber Schertz-Cibolo-Selma luncheon, and Rotary luncheon, 2 Rotary luncheons representing the board.
I don't have anything to report, Mr. President.
I guess just one thing I had, along with Mr. Westbrook, participated in the TASB summer meeting this past weekend in Horseshoe Bay. And I don't know, Mr. Westbrook, did the news we got from there, have you shared that yet with respect to leadership TASB, or is that not appropriate at this time?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's all,
Okay.
if somebody hasn't, it's all positive, I'll leave it at that.
Sure,
Because I'm not
okay.
sure if I was supposed to disclose anything.
Sure. All right. Anyways, now that I let that cat out of the bag, but yeah, so we had a good weekend just dealing with issues on TASB's behalf, and glad to see Mr. Westbrook participating at a statewide level. That's obviously very important for not only the state but for our district, for him to get that notoriety. So.
So I did attend the 4th of July parade, and also attended TASB with Gary Inman, and also went to Fort Worth SLI. And as per board policy, I am supposed to sort of give an update of the classes I went to. I did send them out via email to the Board of Trustees, I think in last week's update. And I sent Dr. Gibson some information today that will be distributed to the rest of the Board of Trustees. But basically, I learned a lot, and I brought it back, and I shared it with the Board of Trustees. Thank you very much. Next, we will have new business report, July 2018 construction update, presented by Wayne Pruski and J.D. Mosley.
Good evening. Good evening, President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, members of the board. We'll continue on. This is the July construction update regarding the bond 2016 report for the board. Starting off at Clemens High School, the additions and renovations are moving forward. We are about we're 69% complete through the project. Most of the outside is coming along rather nicely. The new classroom and administration addition in the front, we're looking to have ready and complete for teachers, staff, admin, etc. in the front part of August. The new practice gym, the same thing, completion in the first half of August. The event center next to the new gym, working around there, you see there as well as in August. So a lot is moving along at Clemens regarding the month of August and trying to get those areas ready as soon as possible. Our target date for staff is around August 8th. And then, as you know, students arrive on the 20th. So we've got roughly that little window there, but we're feeling pretty good about this. The auditorium, just as a reminder, around the end of November to start of December for completion there. As you know, the CTE building in the back has been complete. We are working on the site work around there. The big stuff going on now is we are now inside the building. So the old offices that were inside when you first walked in to the left are no longer there. It's been reconfigured, and you'll see some pictures of that. If you don't know yet, the old auditorium is gone as well, and the gym is starting demo mode as well there. So everything that I was talking about is in the blue. So in the blue, we're circling around. Again, the auditorium coming in towards the end of this calendar year. So this is an overhead view of the new front. We're working on the front loop there. You can see some sidewalks being prepped there on the left. And then inside, this is the admin area. You can see some of the office spaces there and the hallways for those the admin offices. The front entry, when you walk in, the terrazzo flooring, we're tying that into the existing terrazzo on some of the existing campus there. Wanted to keep that there. So there's the seal as you walk in. And then from the outside now, looking back from that baseball field, as you can see there, the front coming along, and now we're working on the site work in front of there. This is the pad right about 6 o'clock. That's the new ROTC pad. We'll have an adjoining area here, but we're having to have access here for construction, so we're not quite finished into this area yet. It's not going to be complete until we finish the west side enclosure of that staircase. Basic classroom setups and flooring, this as a reminder was concrete floors to save on tile waxing. So these are the concrete floors like what we've been doing on our other projects. The auxiliary gym buttoned up. We got the wood flooring in, working on that. It's actually striped now, so it's coming along rather nicely. And volleyball will be in there starting on August 8th as well for their use. This is the entry into the event center. To the right is the auditorium, to the left is the new gym, and then this is going to be the entryway here. They're forming up for the canopy section there. These are the forms getting ready to be poured. Now on the internal side, looking at the new locker rooms, choir and dance inside there, so there's still a lot to be done there, but they're moving along rather nicely. Again, we're going to be completed in time for school. And then this gives you a view from the back side of the auditorium, so the height of the auditorium there looking back towards L Bell. And then some internal shots of the auditorium. And as a reminder, these will be posted on the website tomorrow morning. And then inside the renovated admin area, so we've blown it up and now we're coming back with the renovated spaces there for the teacher, what's called the teacher bullpen. It's a work area as well as the lounge for the area, the mailboxes, storage, and vault. And here's some other shots inside of the existing ROTC to come back for the restrooms and their space. And then what used to be the auditorium, you can see the demo there from the 20th of July. So this will now be the new expanded courtyard space coming forth. You can see where the tree is. This used to be the wall. So all of this space now will be open air. More of that coming on another item on the agenda. Inside the existing gym, the demo has started there as well, and this will be the culinary arts and that work. So there's going to be some work going on inside the school when school starts. This area will not be done by August 20th. This is going to be a full year. Up inside, also some expanded areas there for some offices and a conference room, and this is also the punch-out area into the new wing, upstairs A wing. So to get from A into H, so to speak, where those classrooms are in the front. Same thing in area B, satellite office like we've done in other areas of the campus. So before I move on, are there any questions on Clemens, if that's 69?
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mosley, you want to come do Rose Garden? Thank you.
Good evening. So as you see, I guess the most important thing there is 99% complete on the Rose Garden project. Very happy with where we are with that. Let's see what we have. So substantial completion achieved on July 5th. Final closeout inspections are going on. Those inspections are going on daily right now. Test and balance and commissioning of the HVAC systems in the building is ongoing. And then really it's punch lists and closeout items. Furniture and instructional materials are beginning to move in, or started last week moving in. So we've got the old Rose Garden stuff coming to the new Rose Garden, and as well as the new furniture and new instructional materials and all that stuff being moved in currently. Again, rendition of what we thought it was going to look like. There's our site plan, and then here is the actual front of the school. So that was from July 24th. Another one from this is the bus loop. So this is actually kind of parallel to 1518. Interior colors here. So we've got the watermelon in the pre-K and kinder, the turquoise in the first and third, and then that green in the second and fourth grade classrooms. There's our library. You can see the furniture moved into the library, and the colors in the library. Looking at the cafeteria and the monument sign. So the monument sign out front, kind of facing the entry to the campus, and then again the cafeteria space. This is our discovery zone, kind of being wrapped up. Outside, you got your playgrounds and your blacktop outside. Okay, so that's Rose Garden. The project's going well. Well on our way to having kids there in August 20th. So, questions on that before we move to the fun one, the HVAC projects? Okay, so HVAC, Watts, Wilder, Jordan, 85% complete. So we are in our second summer of these three campuses. Again, completion date for all three of these projects is this August. I'm sure that we will be doing some punch items well into August, some commissioning stuff into September, I'm sure, but substantial completion will be in August for these three projects. Ongoing activities are really insulating copper refrigerant piping and then starting up the new HVAC equipment. A lot of the equipment's already been started, and now it's really kind of getting into the fine tuning. These are the areas that, and the phasing of the projects. You can see some of the insulation going in for the copper tubing, and some painting and some drywall going on. Again, taping and floating some of the areas. You know, when we do these projects, we have to knock down some of the walls or open up some of the walls so that we can replace that piping. So it does require us to do some architectural stuff inside. Technology. So technology, we're showing at 25% complete. Retrofitting the classrooms with display panels is a 3-year project. Combs Consulting is managing that. Phase 1 is due for completion August 1st. Monthly look ahead for technology. That's a phone replacement. And that's district-wide, beginning in September, so this school year. Network infrastructure is actually on the consent agenda for tonight. And then the panel project, phase 1 on target for completion by August 1st. That's the Corbett, DAP, Schertz, and Pascal. And I think that is it for Bond 2016. Any questions on HVAC or technology from Dr. Burkholder? Okay, thank you. I think we do have, is it uploaded already, Mr. Pruski? Here we go. So in addition, you know, we have a 2013 bond project going on, and that is the HVAC replacement at Pascal and Malish. This is savings from the 2013 bond project. July 19th projected completion date. So again, with Pascal, it's a 2-summer job. So we're in our first summer of that project. Pascal is at about 48% complete, where we would hoped it to be. Malish is just getting started. As you saw, we've got some signs out front when you're coming in now, and we are getting started with that project. Phasing and schedule, again, 2 summers for Pascal. Malish is a July till about November is what we're anticipating for that piece of it, with project completion next summer. Phasing here again, so half of Pascal, so we're doing this back half this summer, and then this is the half of the Malish building that we will do as part of the project. And inside of Pascal, looks similar to the Watts Wilder Jordan areas. And again, so doing some architectural work, setting the new units outside. So, and that's that. Any questions on those? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have a report of trustee meetings with high school seniors. Long story short is I'll give a brief summary and then I'll let John chime in. This is not an original idea. Many districts throughout the state of Texas do it. The nearest one to us who does do it is Alamo Heights Independent School District. The objective being was basically to sort of engage graduating seniors, to gather some data and try to come away with some actionable items to sort of improve, you know, graduates in the future. And that's it in a nutshell. We met at Allison Steele, Byron Steele, and Samuel Clemens High School. Allison Steele, I went with John Carew. If you have any comments, John, or no?
Sure, I'll always talk. You know, when you go to meet with children, you're always interested in what they're going to say because you never know how it's going to come. And I honestly thought that the students that were selected were just, their feedback was absolutely just wonderful. I mean, it wasn't the normal, you know, we want longer lunches, we want, you know, whatever the case may be. That they actually had some very good, what I considered, you know, valid points. Some may have reasons why they're that way and we just may not know it. Some are things that maybe we can look into, but, you know, I think some of the takeaways, at least for that particular school, was that the students are all there for various reasons, but they also, and I don't want to overstate it, but they also feel that because they're there, they miss out on a lot of opportunities that some of the other schools have. I know that's probably a little bit of the toss-up of going to that school is that particularly and is, you know, limits some things, but some of it, you know, I kind of understood, and being, you know, looking back to my high school experience, which was, you know, 5 years ago, you know, there's a lot of things I think I would have missed out on or regretted if I didn't have the opportunity to go to. And so, you know, I think within reason, if there's some things that they have the opportunity to be to participate in, based on, you know, the fact that they came from this school originally, they should have that opportunity. You know, I think it's something that we should at least look into as a possibility. If there's a reason why we don't do it, then, you know, I'm sure that that's, there's a reason for it. But if there's opportunities to do some of the things that they brought up, like proms, homecoming, some of those other opportunities, they said that they just feel that they don't get to go to all, they miss out on the high school experience, then, you know, I would just ask that if it's possible that we could look at least some of those opportunities. If I can make one other comment, if you don't mind, sir. The other thing I noted on the other two schools, which I didn't attend, but it was noted on both of them, is in various ways add elements of adulting to curriculum. And then the other one says need more classes that offer life lessons, how to write checks. You know, I think those are two very important things too. Having a daughter who just graduated, it's amazing that I had her the other day try to write a check and she didn't know how. And then, you know, I know that cursive has been taken out. I know there's reasons for it, but they have to sign documents, and they said, well, I don't know how to sign, you know, cursive. And, you know, so I actually had a document kicked back the other day because they said it has to be a signature. And my daughter said, well, I don't know how to sign a signature. Not the older one, the other one. But the other one didn't know how to write a check. So I started thinking, you know, and seeing this is, you know, there are maybe some opportunities to add that type of stuff in certain classes, you know, to how to write checks, how to balance a checkbook. And I don't know if we already do that in all classes, but I definitely think balancing a checkbook is a big one. It would probably cause a lot less stress later on in people's lives. And the only other thing was both of them mentioned in some form the aspect of bullying, update bullying scenarios, and the other said, which I thought was interesting, updates to bullying information to include passive-aggressive bullying. So, you know, hopefully, and I know we are because I see every year what we do, but hopefully we continue to monitor this and just make sure that people are going to school and enjoy the school experience without having to worry about certain things like being bullied and all the different ways that we as a school district can minimize that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other comments about this? Nope. If not, I think it does give us an opportunity for Dr. Limley to jump in on a Friday morning, about 7 o'clock in the morning, to sort of determine what's actionable from all of this information, even though you didn't actually attend, but we're already loading you up with work to do, so I do appreciate it. He is the Director of Secondary Education, right? Okay, good deal. Next, we will have the discussion for Samuel Clemens High School Band Hall renovations, conceptual design, presented by Mr. Pruski. Not yet?
Okay, sorry. Thought I had it loaded up in there. Good evening again. For the bottom line up front, the district, while working with the Clemens project, and I'll show a recap of this. As you know, we've touched many areas of the campus of Clemens High School, and looking forward towards being past the 50% mark, we see a possibility of some additional savings from the original $72 million that was allocated to Clemens High School. As you know, we've touched many areas of the campus. One of the areas that was not in the original design of the renovation and addition was the band hall. And tonight we'd like to come forth with a conceptual plan for the Clemens Band Hall for an addition and renovation project that it could be used, or the funding of the savings, those funds could be used towards that band hall. As mentioned, we are moving forward and have a conceptual design ready to share this evening. This is conceptual. It's not a full design. It's just the idea that we've been kicking around, and we wanted to make the board aware and to have a discussion regarding this. So just as a reminder, on the campus, we've touched the CTE areas. We've added the classrooms in the front, new admin. There'll be new career and technology outside, as I mentioned, on the building, but also inside with the new culinary arts, forensic labs, et cetera. And then with the new gym. So we've kind of moved and centralized CTE in one area of the campus, general education to try to get that in the front and using that, as well as we moved the athletics area together as well, getting the gym out of the main campus and bringing it out to the next to the other gym and making that easier to manage. So what we're looking at now is going into the existing footprint of the band hall for some renovation opportunities, as well as coming out a little bit into that new bigger courtyard now that the auditorium's gone, and adding this gold area here for program. Thank you, Matt. So this is a floor plan of the existing band hall on this right side. Just to orient you, this is the back of the campus. This is the kitchen and the cafeteria, and then here's the current courtyard space. So what we have is band hall 1, band hall 2, and then an area for orchestra. As a reminder, choir has moved into the P building, which is where next to the gym, the area that's going to be next to the auditorium as well. So choir is across, and I'll show you that on another schematic here. But what we're looking at doing is expanding the areas in rows. If you've been in that band hall or if you're familiar with it, inside there we have stairwells that go up to a mezzanine where the practice rooms are. These stairwells come out about 5 to 6 feet, and they shrink the room just by being there. So we're looking at taking the stairwells out and then addressing some areas here for instrument storage, uniform storage, but also there's a corridor through here that we'd like to capture, and there's some design coming forth in here. So this would be all touched downstairs. So the areas of renovation there. Now what this does is it opens up band hall 1, which makes it larger. As a reminder, this building was built, I believe, in '96. When I was hired at Clemens, there was 1,400 students in '94. So we've grown this campus with the same band hall since then. So it does have its spatial limitations. So moving forward, upstairs in the mezzanine, again, just as a reminder, above in band hall 1, all the practice rooms are upstairs. These are little ensemble rooms, little practice rooms, soundproof rooms that are up there. It does cause a concern for supervision because you've got your band downstairs and you may send part of the band upstairs and working through there. So in working with Mr. Leip, Marmon Mock, AGCM, myself, working through this for a concept, we've come up with this plan. So as a reminder, and that is to remove those practice rooms from upstairs and bring them down to where everybody is on the same playing field, so to speak. So everywhere in blue, this is the new footprint of Clemens High School when the project's done. The only thing missing is the CTE building out here. But you can kind of see where band and music, art, the black box, and fine arts theater over here. So it's kind of the same concept with athletics on this side, fine arts, you come around and you have your CTE and then your general education classes. So we're kind of following the same mindset of what we did at the original plan for Clemens High School. So what does that mean for the band hall there? Well, what we're looking at doing is through some renovations, and if you recall, their corridor is now gone, excuse me, and we'll bring down some practice rooms. So the practice rooms that were upstairs will come down into here. There is a new configuration for instrument storage. Instead of just having a closet or a storage room, It's an actual, if you've been in the Adobe or other music areas where the lockers are along the wall, it makes kind of a horseshoe look into there as well. And then the bigger space for Band Hall 1. We're touching Band Hall 2, but we're adding those practice rooms in that corridor. But then we're reconfiguring something here, and this is where the addition comes into play. So on the original plan, this orchestra room was rotated 90 degrees. This is how it is existing. We're looking at turning it 90 degrees, using this as orchestra as it is blown up here on the right. And then you can see the extra space that we'd be grabbing then for percussion storage. Mr. Leip had a great example. Back in 1994, we probably had 2 tubas and a couple of percussion instruments. In 2018, we probably have 28 tubas. It takes up some space there. So to try to help with this as well. So, and then with the uniforms as well, the program has grown, as you know, with the existing enrollment. And so to address that, we're looking at coming out and doing this renovation inside as well as the addition on the outside. Now, the addition may not be huge, but it is enough to satisfy for the storage and for the practice rooms and for orchestra as well. So the space is going to be program adequate for them. And getting there. So with that, as a reminder, on the purpose and objectives of the design team, originally constructed in '96, and it doesn't respond to the current program requirements. As I mentioned earlier, Clemens student bodies almost doubled since the band hall was constructed. The Fine Arts Department has been proactive in purging items in the last couple years to help with the continuing storage issues. Storage needs continue to be an issue with the increased number of students in band and music. Addition and renovation will add much needed large percussion storage, band instrument storage, and uniform storage while improving the function of other areas, namely having everybody together and supervision on the same floor, not having to worry about what's going on up there or separating your groups. Technology and mechanical will be upgraded throughout the building to meet 2019 standards, so we're bringing it up to 2019 standards. The aforementioned supervision will be improved, and the proposed additions and renovations will help the band program be aligned with other band programs in San Antonio area. Now, to do this, it's not a summer job. The timeline for construction proposed is April through August of 2019. So in order to have it ready for the start of the next school year and for band marching season, we've kind of got to start at the end of the previous school year to get in there and get the work done. We believe this is a positive, and to take advantage of the situation of what we have there now. This would be bid as a separate contract, so we would put it out to the street and would like to continue moving forward. Now, for any questions regarding this, be happy to take.
How many students are currently in the band program there at Clemens High School?
Mr. Light.
Don't have a number on me, I'm thinking 280 or so, 285,
280?
yeah, somewhere around there, I think.
Okay. All right. Any idea how many were in the program in 1996?
I can get that.
Okay. I'm just curious, because tripling the size of the school doesn't necessarily mean you triple the size of your band program. So.
Well, okay, yes, sir.
How much additional square footage are we talking about here?
Additional new is roughly 20, I had that and I didn't bring it, 23? 13? 1,300 is that new addition that punches out into the courtyard.
Okay.
Renovated is about another 9,000 to renovate, but then to bring it up to the current standards and moving those rooms down and having everything there too, it's going to play into, that's going to come into play as well.
So you're talking about maybe a 15, 20% increase in the floor space? About?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how does the directors feel about this plan, the Clemens directors?
We discussed, again, just conceptual, we haven't gotten into specific in the area. The band hall 1, band hall 2, and orchestra are really a pretty good size. It's where we were really struggling with was storage. And because we didn't have any place to put stuff, then it all just ended up sitting out in those band halls, which then became smaller and usable. So what this really addresses is just getting some storage space, which not only gives you storage space, but also creates more usable space in the main person.
It allows more functional space.
Much more functional.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Any other?
Yeah, 'cause I've been in there, and you're right, when they try to move it around, especially when you're trying to get out of there to go to a presentation or football game or back in there, it can be a little crazy in there, trying to move instruments around, also trying to practice. It's a little bit small, so to get the instruments into a good storage area would be a good thing to do, so it sounds like a good idea.
Any other comments? What is, out of the $72 million bond, residual funds, this is gonna cost approximately $4 million?
We're looking at around the 4 million mark.
Around the 4 million?
4 to 4.2 is somewhere in between in there. That's our original cost estimate on something to this
Will that
nature.
exhaust any residual funds, or will there still be a likelihood of,
We should have some after that left over, yes.
any thought to the whole safety issue recently? I mean, we're only another safety issue away before we start
Yes, sir.
discussing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's why on this, moving forward, we have that number, and we're trying to hold the other number for additional safety means for the campus itself, or if we have residual savings in Rose Garden and Clemens and other projects, combining them like we did with 2013, coming to the board with another list of, here's what we would like to do with these residual funds to share with the board for approval moving forward. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
So again, we'll continue then on massaging this, and I will continually be bringing up updates to the board for review and question and answers. Thank you for your time.
Before we go any further, Dr. Gibson had told me earlier to sort of set out some time, but I guess he has something to
Well,
say right now.
when we skipped the break, I'm pretty linear, and so my note said introduce Brett and Kelly after the break, and then we skipped the break, and so Brett got roped into a conversation, but I wanted to introduce Brett Limley, our secondary education director, and Kelly Kovacs, director of curriculum and professional development. So welcome aboard. They got about 30 minutes of onboarding, I think, and maybe 25, and just jumped in. We did deep into the pool onboarding the last few weeks, but yeah. Comes later. Yeah, comes later. But welcome aboard, and they're both doing an excellent job. Just in the couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to work with both of them in different capacities, and they're doing an excellent job. So welcome aboard.
Do they want to say anything right quick? No?
I heard thumbs up and happy to be here, so there you go.
Next, we'll have conveyance of easements to the GVEC at Samuel Clemens High School. Matt Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, and Dr. Gibson. We do have a, sorry, I got myself turned around. I was so enamored by what was going on at Clemens Band Hall, lost my page. It was good news. All right, but speaking of Samuel Clemens, Samuel Clemens has been there for a while, and a lot of construction has gone on at Samuel Clemens, and not all of it necessarily was documented. GVEC was called out to look at maybe extending a line, and the line wasn't where the drawing said it would be, and contractors sometimes found lines where they weren't supposed to be according to their drawings. So GVEC went out to Clemens and did a survey across all the property, and they found they've got 3,900 linear feet of underground primary line on the property, serving a campus. So what they've done is given us some, no kidding, this is where the stuff really is, descriptions, and they're asking for the district to provide easements next month for large lines that are in the parking lot area that are going to be abutting the stadium up to the new auditorium area, and then on the other side of the baseball field, so that we'll know We always have to call before we dig, but we'll have a very good idea where the stuff really is this time. Now, Mr. Pruski has lived this, so I don't know if he wants to add anything to that or not. He would if he could. Are there any questions to that? It's not here right now, it's just discussion. It behooves us to allow them to maintain those lines. We're not gonna ask them to pay for anything. This is serving us at the campus.
Any questions?
We're not gonna lose the use of the property, we're just gonna allow them easement to be able to get to their lines, right?
Yes, sir. Their verbiage is a little bit broad, so we've turned it over to our attorney to try and reword it a little bit to narrow down the scope for maintenance. Not that, we don't want them building a facility like a new GVEC plant on top of our campus, so we want to narrow that verbiage down a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions? T-Test, Linda Cannon.
Yes, good evening, President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, members of the board. By policy, the district is required to establish an appraisal calendar for teacher observations, and then their summative at the end of the school year for their conferences. We're also required by board to approve a list of certified appraisers. Tonight, this is a discussion item only, and we'll bring it back for the board for action in August.
Any comments? Thank you. Discussion adjunct faculty resolution and off-campus activities related to 4-H, presented by Cassandra Gracia. Oh, I saw T-Test. T-Pest, Linda Cannon.
Yes, just like with our teachers, for our administrators, our principals, and assistant principals, we are required to establish an appraisal calendar for them as well to be given to them prior to their pre-conference being held. Again, this is a discussion item only we brought back in August for approval.
Any comments or concerns? Next, we'll have Cassandra Gracia.
Good evening, President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, and members of the board. This is our annual renewal of the 4-H resolution that indicates that, or that allows students to participate in board-approved 4-H off-campus activities with an adjunct staff member. It also states in there that when students miss school for these types of absences, that they are coded school business. There's no fiscal impact to SCUC, and there are no changes from last year.
Any comments, questions?
I was just going to comment since I have a 4-H'er. So I know they're very integral in the fourth graders going out to the livestock barn and all that. So I know they appreciate it. We hear it on the other end as well at our 4-H meetings. So
that's wonderful. Thank you.
Next, we will have procurement of goods and services presented by Matt Rivera.
We actually, this month, we only have one item that we've got out on the street. Actually, it opens on the 25th, so we'll receive our proposals on the 25th. This is for speech language pathologist services. This is to supplement an existing contract which we already have for the district. The contractor shall conduct evaluations to assess students with speech or language disorders and conditions to determine eligibility for services and provide speech-language pathology services to students requiring therapeutic or educational services on an as-needed basis. This will be provided under our general operating fund budget, and our month to bring this back should be next month.
You have a comment?
no, yeah, I was going to ask. Sometimes I know people talk about the consultant amounts we do, but sometimes this falls in that or not when we can't find.
Yes, actually, when we contract out for nursing services, they all come under one account. If you look at account codes only, all of the architects that we have working on all the bond projects fall under that. All of our contract management team would fall under that.
Right.
All of the nurses that we hire on a part-time basis, all the pathologists that we have,
Mhm.
therapists that we have.
And sometimes those are because we can't fill them, correct? Just if we're gonna hire out, we just have to contract out sometimes, is that correct?
That and then the number of hours that need to be serviced are more than what we have on staff.
Gotcha.
Matt, are we still transporting students to San Marcos for speech pathology and
You know,
hearing?
I would have to defer to Mr. Perez. I'm not sure if that's still going on.
No, sir, I believe, those students are not going down to the San Antonio facility.
Okay, all right. Okay. But that would be also included in consulting fees?
Yes, that's object code
Yeah,
6219.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Next, we will have discussion for the local district update, policy DNA local performance appraisal evaluation of teachers presented by Linda Cannon.
Yes, the approval of the District of Innovation Plan included an exemption allowing for us to develop a local protocol for an evaluation cycle and process for teachers. This exemption would allow administrators the greater flexibility in evaluations and more time to support teachers through feedback and coaching. So in collaboration with district and campus administrators and teachers, teacher leaders, we looked at a process to place teachers on a 3-year evaluation cycle based on specific guidelines that we've outlined in an admin reg, which has been provided to you as well. But this would require a change to policy DNA local. Those that are placed on a 3-year cycle would still go through a goal setting and work on a professional development plan. They would look at assessing the performance of the teacher's students. There would be a modified end-of-the-year conference with the administrator. Therefore, we're looking at that policy change with the DNA to place them on a 3-year cycle based on the guidelines that are written in the admin reg and DNA local.
So would the 3-year cycle, would it just repeat itself at the end of the cycle, or would they go on to something different?
No, they're going to place teachers in a year 1, year 2, and year 3, and then that just starts over on that 3-year cycle.
Okay.
So every 3 years, they would receive a full evaluation as long as they met the guidelines within the policy.
Okay, thank you.
Linda, this was part of the policy audit, but they recommended that if you've already adopted DOI to jump ahead of when you're going to approve all the other Ds, because technically we're starting now.
That's
in
correct.
a few weeks. So if that makes sense, we extracted this out because it needs to be dealt with before everything else, because we've already approved DOI.
Yes, it was a policy we were looking at making changes to because of the DOI, but then the policy audit came and we worked with our policy analysts to make the changes to DNA local, and we extracted that because with teachers returning in August, we want to make sure we have all this in place for them.
And then Paige, we don't have it tonight, but I might mention it with update 11. We've got all the rest of that policy audit laid out for the next 5 months. Is that right, basically?
Yes, we should be finished with that by Christmas, by bringing the local policies that we made revisions with the entire cabinet.
And that was in the board update last week. So you just get ready, it's coming. So all of these A and B and then C and D and all that's coming to the trustees.
So a teacher is on a 3-year cycle. What's an example of what would take her off, him or her, off the cycle?
Well, to be honest, you would have to be here 3 years and then also be on the same campus for a year. So for instance, if a teacher were to transfer from one campus to another campus, that would take them off the cycle because that administrator is now getting to know this teacher that's new to them. And then if there's any performance issues, then an administrator can go ahead and remove a teacher at any point in time and have them go through a full-blown evaluation process.
You know approximately how many teachers this will affect?
Well, the first year, we're going to have to look at equalizing that on the campuses, and we're working with the principals now to look at, years of service that they have in Schertz-Cibolo to be able to put them on a 3-year cycle. And then those that have newer teachers on their campus, they would automatically be on that that year 1.
Okay.
And then we would be looking at who we would push to year 2 and year 3 as far as that evaluation cycle.
Thank you.
So they would have to be on a campus 3 years before the 3-year cycle begins, because they would go through they would go through the evaluation every year.
If you look at the guidelines, it says that they would need to be there, have been employed by the district for at least 3 years. And the reason for that is really those probationary contracts last the 3 years.
Right. So, but if they were on that 3-year cycle, but yet they moved to another campus, they would have to start over the 3-year.
For 1 more year.
Oh, for 1 more year?
For 1 more year.
Okay, okay.
So if they were to transfer from one campus to another campus, just because the administrators is getting to know them.
They would do an evaluation and then.
That
then they'd
first
go on
year,
the
and then
3-year
they could
cycle.
go on the
I got you.
cycle.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have discussion, local district update, policy CDC local, other revenues, gifts, and solicitations presented by Paige Maloney.
Yes, thank you, President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, members of the board. We are bringing as a discussion item tonight CDC local with some proposed changes. There's really 2 parts of this policy that we're looking at. We're looking at the conditional donations and web-based donations to the district, or web-based solicitations. We took this policy to the board policy committee back in June, and we are making the recommended changes this evening. On the base version for gifts and donations, the TASB version requires that all conditional gifts have board approval. That would be like books that would be donated to the library. It would become pretty cumbersome to bring that list every single month, because we receive a number of donations that are conditional during the school year. So what we're trying to do is we're going to set some separate thresholds for all gifts and conditional gifts, and I'll go over those in just a minute. Well, I'll go over them right now. We are proposing that the board shall be notified of any gift with a cost or market value of $1,000. So that would just come in a board report, probably monthly. And then any gift with a cost or market value of $1,000 or more, any gift of $25,000 or greater that the potential donor has expressed made conditional upon the district's use for a specified purpose or real property shall require board approval. I'm sorry, did I say what I say? Oh, 2,500. 2,500 or greater will come to the board, and that will be in a consent list, because our PTCs continuously make donations to the campuses for a number of things. So that would come in a list in the consent items to show conditional gifts of 2,500 or greater. The other area in the policy, and the TASB-based version, would allow any employee to get approval to do web-based solicitations on behalf of the district. What we're proposing is, because we do ask our community, we have so many fundraisers through our organizations, through our campuses, we are wanting to strike that language from this policy and move the crowdfunding. We are going to allow some crowdfunding web-based solicitations, but through our regular fundraising policy, which is CDF local. And we need to bring this to the board to get approval in August, so that we may begin our fundraising with our organizations and our PTCs prior to the year beginning.
Paige, this isn't on here, but Dr. Edwards, can we, I believe we have it's loosely related, but the GKB administrative regulation finalized, or we've got it near final. So can we just commit to getting that done, let's say in the next week? We've vetted and rewrote and all that, and get it out to the board update. Board doesn't approve those, but it kind of goes along with this. And this was what we had a couple of public comments a while back related to this, and we've got that admin reg basically ready, is the bottom line. It's not directly related, but it's kind of related to this.
And one thing I will say about this policy, the donation part, the donation change in Update 107 got completely biased, because we were zeroed in on this crowdfunding thing, and lots of the districts were like, oh, we don't have that, nobody's doing that. And then you start to look and you see that it is going on and individuals are doing it with or without permission. Because, and that's why TASB wrote it that way, very loosely. But what we're trying to do is to put some parameters on that, because we feel that our community has asked a lot to support our programs, and we want to have a little more control over that fundraising exercise.
And basically, the crowd fundraising is like donors choose and some of those online.
Exactly. And we're gonna go with 2 vendors that propose, approved vendors that they can use if they do want to do that. We're not saying that, the football sponsor or whoever, the dance sponsor at Clemens High School, they have to just use one of the 2 vendors that we've approved for that type of fundraising. And it has to be one of the approved fundraisers.
Any other questions? And I think this was brought up to the Board Policy Committee only because there was some issues at different campuses, correct?
Yes.
And what generated the changes?
We went over this with principals and secretaries today, and they said, thank you.
Any other comments?
Just a comment. We tried to find an amount, or amounts that we thought were workable. We'll work with administration. These seem to be amounts that we were comfortable with, as far as giving the superintendent the ability to accept them to a certain point, then come to us with either a report or actually approve those. So we thought these were pretty good numbers to work with. The administration seemed to be that these were good numbers to work with. So that's why we brought these numbers to you. As far as 1,000 and 2,500, we didn't want the board to be overburdened with a lot of reports, but we thought that these were good threshold numbers. And as time goes on, these threshold numbers will probably have to be increased. Or if these numbers don't work, if we get large amounts, then we can always come back and increase these numbers or modify them. So this is a kind of a good starting point, we felt. And then we can go from there. And if a year or so, these are numbers don't work, we'll come back and try and modify them as such. So this is the first blush of it.
The members on the committee were myself, Ed Finley, and Dr. Irene Petrisky. So next, we will have discussion for TASB policy update. Dr. Gibson.
Yeah, this is update 111, and you're getting near a legislative session when TASB policy analysts are now just changing words back and forth to what they were before, and there's no new law, and their full staff is continuing to work. And this probably will be the last update, I think, potentially before the 86th legislative session. So a lot of cleanup in this. It focused on some legal policies that were finalized in the 85th legislative session. And then most of these were waiting on administrative rule changes. As crazy as that sounds, these were adopted June 1, 2 years ago, and the admin rules from the various state agencies are just now approving them. And I know it's on page 54 through something, back there, and you'll want to make sure to flag that to take it home and read it word for word. But there is, in case you don't want to do that, back on page about 73 or 72, page 70 rather, are the vantage points that give the good high-level summary of all the local changes. There are legal and local in the update. Of course, the board is only approving the local. The local ones are marked up with red deletion, blue addition, what was the other color, and green for move text. So if you see anything or have any questions over the course of the next month, please let us know. Otherwise, I think we're good with this, Dee Dee. We've read it several times, and I'd just offer to put it in consent agenda unless somebody sees something that they want to pull out.
I was telling Mr. Finley, I think some of it looked too during a disaster. I was thinking people went back and looked at things after Hurricane Harvey
That's
as
correct.
well.
Yep.
When you look at some of these policy
That's
changes.
exactly right.
And their pay is 1.5 times non-exempt employees. It's 1.5. Who came up with the number? Is that state? That was all state? If they're mandated to work, that is. Who determines if they're mandated to work?
Who determines if they're mandated to work?
Yes, I mean, that's
Which
superintendent.
page are you on?
Page 63, premium paid during disasters. Non-exempt employees who are required to work during an emergency closing for a disaster as declared by federal, state, or local official or the board.
Well,
That would be typically with the director For instance, if there is a building issue, then somebody from the facilities and maintenance would be assigned to work.
Okay.
And this is a really good opportunity. So at the bottom of that page, this policy as proposed is going from an X to a B1. If you see on the very bottom left-hand corner. So that means that the rate that's recommended in there is TASB's recommendation.
Oh, okay.
Or it would be an X down below because we would have created it. So we're going with what TASB has stated is acceptable.
Thank you. Any other questions? Nope. Next, we will have discussion, board consideration and consensus on discussion items eligible for action items under consent agenda presented by Robert Westbrook. Under the consent items, does anybody want anything pulled? Nope. So next, we will have the next month, we will have Clements High School Band Hall renovations. What'd you say? Oh. GVAC easements at Clements High School, appointments of T-test appraisers and T-test appraisal calendar for school year 2018-2019, establishment of the T-PES adjunct faculty resolution and off-campus activities related to 4-H, speech language pathologist services, local district update policy DNA local, local district update policy CDC local, and TASB policy updates affecting the following local policies for consent next month.
And of course, anybody can pull.
Anybody, yeah, anybody
pull
can
any
pull.
item at any time.
Just give us a holler. Action items, consent items. Page 81.
Mr. President, I move the Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0.
Somebody holler out a page number.
189. Other action items, request for board action, proposed.
181.
Request for board action, proposed maintenance and operations and interest in sinking tax rate for the 2018-2019 school year presented by Paige Maloney.
Yes, thank you, President Westbrook, members of the board, Dr. Gibson. Tonight, as by law with truth and taxation and the way that that sequence of events has to happen, we bring to you the recommending the proposed tax rate, which has to come before the public meeting and scheduled for August, and then the adoption of the budget and the adoption of the tax rate. Tonight, we are adopting the proposed tax rate so that by law we can make taxpayers aware of our tax rate proposal, and if it were to be in excess of the current tax rate, that it could go to election if possible. But tonight it is only for the proposed tax rate to set the work in motion for truth and taxation to set the public meeting for the budget and the tax rate in August. We have attached, we've had many requests for if the 2 cents were approved, if we were to go to a $1.06 tax rate, what are the needs beyond the $1.04 maintenance and operations budget? We have aligned those to our superintendent's areas of focus, but those in blue, you will see the overall needs, and I'll let you look at those. And then what we want to show is that the Board of Trustees does approve the budget but at the function level, and so we've listed some expenditure considerations that we've been talking about for the past year. Should the tax stratification election be passed by the voters in November. And then on the second page of that document, we have some TRE planning estimates for 18-19 by function, because that is how the budget is approved. And it will be its own little piece of the pie, if you will, in the budget presentation to show that that money that would be generated by the extra 2 pennies would be set aside and not expended until the voters would give their approval in November. So that's roughly the 4 million. And then we've provided some detail by function that kind of gives you a better idea of what we would be spending the money on. Some of that is subject to change. Of course, if you're approving those funds in November and you're looking for personnel, you don't know if those would be able to be filled during that school year. But your intent is you are passing the budget at the function level. We would spend that money on instruction to, for the students. So we wanted to provide that sort of detail for that first year, but the needs are not changing for the future. I mean, the needs are the needs in blue on the first page. And we have a new legislative session, and we're just hoping there aren't any unfunded Band-Aids coming out of that. So we actually have 2 motions before you, and one is for a $1.06 tax rate. We want to remind you that if you do a tax rate beyond the $1.04 in August, and we pass that tax rate, it does require 5 votes of the Board of Trustees. So we have indicated that in this motion for the proposed tax rate, and then we have another motion for you. You wanted it brought back both ways, and that's what we've done this evening.
Mr. Westbrook, if I may just put, so those 2 bullets, I want to clarify it. So it's one or the other one. Yes. And you may have noticed the district having to go back and vote again on a tax ratification election. The way this is worded would hopefully prevent that from occurring for us or something like that. And that particular district, as in several districts in the state right now, are asking for all 13 cents. And I guess I want to just emphasize in 1 minute or less how important, so we came out of Community Advisory Committee, for whatever it's worth, about a 50-50 split. Half saying, well, just go for the 13, and half saying, well, go for 5. And then we came out of that into our public meetings with in-board workshops. So in the course of those board workshops and public meetings associated with those board workshops, that discussion went from the 5 to the 2. And, at that time, I didn't know how I felt about it other than, here are the numbers. We're just looking at the numbers. And Mr. Finley, I remember you saying one time, and it's probably the first time it kind of just really gelled, that of all 13 pennies, 40% of the capacity of them is in the first 2 pennies. And, that's why they're called the golden pennies. And and 75% of that 4 million is coming from the state. That's why they're so valuable. It's like the last lever you pull to get the funding from the state. And I say all that to just say, I don't feel like 2 cents is a consolation prize tonight. I feel like 2 cents is the right decision because we listen to our public.
Any comments? David?
Mr. President, I move that Board of Trustees approve a proposed maintenance and operation tax rate of $1.06 and proposed interest and sinking rate of 45 cents for 2018-2019 as presented. Further move that this motion must receive an affirmative vote from a minimum of 5 trustees in order to pass.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, just some clarifying questions. I know we've talked about this several times over the past few months, but what's our projected fund balance at the end of this fiscal year?
If you remember, we did take the expenditure projection plan out. It was to the tune of, I think, about $5.8 million this year. $5.8 million. Last year, if you'll remember, we essentially broke even. Forecasting is showing us right now we won't break even. Our fund balance is probably going to be about somewhere $1 million, 1.5 less than it was when we started the school year. And that was with board approved expenditure projection plans incorporated. So I feel like we have realized some savings We put the brakes on positions early when the students did not come, the fast growth positions, and we're going to end up probably about 1.5 million less than we were last year, which was
So in the EPP was 5.8?
5.8.
Okay.
And so so we took that out, but the hit that we're going to realize is about 1.5.
Leaving us with a
Maybe
total fund
better.
balance of approximately how much?
$40.5 million approximately.
Okay, and I know there's no magic number here, but just, you know, TASB advises on what a healthy fund balance should be, which is approximately how much for a district with our size budget,
90 days operating.
which is roughly how much?
I think next year last year it was 29 million.
Okay, so let's just say 30 million, right? So, I mean, so we're sitting here today. I mean, it can fluctuate up and down a little bit, but I mean, TASB is telling us a healthy fund balance. In other words, how much we should have set aside, in a sense, given the size of our budget, should be approximately $30 million, and we're sitting here with $40 million. Okay, and I've been around here long enough to know that we got there by being very frugal and fiscally conservative, and I think being renowned across the state for one of those districts that was always rational with our budget, and we had good people that sat in your seat and good superintendents that really paid attention to our budget, and that's how we now have a fairly good excess of fund balance. So first question, and I know we've been through some of this, I just want to reiterate this if we're going to make this vote tonight. Instead of asking the taxpayers to up several $1 million more out of their pockets, why are we not using part of the fund balance that we, by any definition, we're keeping more than we probably should have?
I'll answer the question with, we have not talked a lot about the debt service fund balance, but we, last year and this year, did not generate the revenue to make our debt service payment, so we had to go into our INS fund balance. We are getting to a point, and I think that question has come up before about our INS fund balance. Why do we have it? Well, it is when you are a fast growth district. I mean, your revenue that you're raising at the INS level, it's just the revenue. Whatever the taxes are, that's what you're going to get. And so right now, and I mean, our advisors are telling us it is good to keep that fund balance where it is, so we can ride these times of, okay, the kids haven't come, the taxable values haven't done what we thought that they would do in the past couple of years, getting the growth, and so we may have to use some of the fund balance to make the INS payment eventually.
And one of the Moody's and Fitch both cited that, which is kind of outside
for your capacity.
Their recommendation is outside of TASB's recommendation. TASB's is just kind of this generic one. They're saying you with a fast growth, building as much as you are, we think you should exceed what that is, I think is what you're saying.
Exactly.
So we need to exceed a certain amount. And then the other component that comes to mind with Mr. Inman's question is the staff salary for this coming year was mitigated to some extent too, to make the budget balance.
Right.
And there is a chance that if we still go ahead this next year and consider a one-time payment,
It could come from
fund balance. I mean, that we're holding that thought that, that's going to be the proposal that we would bring back to the board, or at least the consideration, maybe not proposal, but the consideration.
And I'll echo what Dr. Gibson said when we went through our ratings calls for the last bond sale, taking out that money for the EPP.
It gave them a lot of anxiety.
It brought a lot of anxiety for a rating agency, because all they're concerned about is you're going to be able to pay your bill.
Well, and that's the thing, that's fund balance is typically going to be used for one-time purchases, something that's not a recurring cost. I think some of what would be in these 2 pennies will be recurring costs, because we're going to get those 2 pennies from here on until something of that changes. So if we did fund balance this, we would have to go back into the fund balance next year and pay these same costs over again. Or we would be back in this position next year, coming back and saying, well, what are we gonna do now?
And Mr. Peavsall has a really good point, because we've held off on some of the things that are in blue here because they are reoccurring costs. And that's your point. So in that, and, you know, district approved the budget last night, went ahead and put the raise in it, and, you know, took the $8 million out of fund balance, and, you know, I would argue for some reoccurring costs, and maybe theirs is healthier than ours. I hope that it is. But, you know, that's just pretty scary. And I appreciate what you said earlier, Mr. I don't know how you keep this thing healthy with thinking like that, because you know, that seems pretty risky, I guess, to me.
And one thing I do want to say, coming out of Austin, you know, we don't see much hope coming out of the Finance Commission of any, you know, anything really going to happen in the legislative session to come. One thing that does look encouraging, that for those golden pennies, the 4 that we already have and the 2, the Austin yield is likely to increase because Austin values continue to skyrocket.
Okay, could you just clarify for me, just because I don't know if I completely understand it? The first motion is to move that the Board of Trustees approve a proposed maintenance and operating tax rate of 1.06. The second item on here, and I guess that's where I'm just a little confused, is I move that the Board of Trustees approve the Thursday meeting, and it goes into it. The board will then convene into a special called meeting for the purpose of adopting the school year budget and then settling the tax rate. What is the difference between the two? What is it? Tonight we're approving the 1.06, but then what does it mean by settling the tax rate?
But where are you?
I'm on.
Oh, on the next agenda item?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, so the rate
public
that's
meeting?
approved tonight goes in the paper, basically, and then we have to let it be in the paper for a few weeks, and then we have the meeting. That's the way the law is written.
Which I understand. I guess my confusion is, and then it says, and then settling the tax rates. What is that?
Setting or settling?
Settling.
So I guess, I think it may need to.
Because if we
should
vote
be
on it tonight, wouldn't it
setting.
already be settled? I guess that's why I'm just confused.
No, it's a good question. I think that's a typo.
No,
That's
I
on
think
page
tonight is
180.
just proposing it, and then the next meeting will be to
Is
actually
to
set
set
the
it.
tax rate. I mean,
Right.
tonight,
Yeah, but
tonight
thi-
isn't a final decision.
This
It's-
is
Tonight is not the final
settling with
decision,
an L. It's
and
a
in fact,
typo.
it's so that we are able to publish, so that the taxpayers can see that we're going to bring a budget at this tax rate, because the budget has to be passed, and it's very strange the way the
Sure.
law works. The budget has to be passed before the tax rate is set. So it could very well happen if we did $1.06 tonight, and we made the presentation at $1.06, and then we didn't have the 5 votes, and it went to $1.04. We'd have to bring the budget back to you to amend.
Yeah, and
So-
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, I think, and maybe this isn't what you're asking, the word that's in here, I think, is just a typo. That's what he's saying. It's settling with an L instead
Oh.
of setting with no L.
It's setting. I'm sorry, I don't
Okay,
even, yeah.
So tonight we're proposing it. Y'all create a budget. We come back on that date, if that's approved. We have a public
Oh,
hearing.
yes.
At that
It's a
public
typo.
hearing, we hear what people say, and then we go into closed session to decide if that's the direction we're gonna go or not gonna go based on.
Yeah, everything except the
Everything.
closed session.
Yes.
part.
Okay.
I apologize.
It
That
was just
was a
that word.
typo.
Okay. I actually read something. It wasn't a number.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to be a dead horse. I mean, I've been to a lot of these budget meetings, and I think we've always gotten great ratings as a district because we have been very, very good with our budget. I just got a few issues that I have heartburn with, quite honestly. So our fund balance is 33+% higher than what someone says is good. I mean, so it's not that we have a bad fund balance and we need extra money to get that up to speed. We actually have an incredibly healthy, overly healthy fund balance. The second thing, when it comes to employee compensation, I mean, there was once upon a time when we were one of the lowest paying districts in this area. And set a goal to get above the 50th percentile, and I don't think in 1,000 years people would have thought we would one day be the highest paying district in this city. And now you come to learn that not only are we one of the highest paying, but we're actually paying far in excess of most of our competitors. Which again wouldn't indicate a district that's having financial trouble. I mean, we're not trying to raise compensation to recruit people that we couldn't recruit otherwise, or retain people we couldn't retain otherwise. I mean, we're already one of the highest paying districts out there with a low turnover ratio, plenty of people trying to get into this district. So I don't see a whole lot of benefit of throwing more money into that part of the hopper. We've had years over the past when we did have tough financial times, and I know we went through a reduction in force. I think Mr. Peverto was here back then, 10, 15 years ago, and actually had to lay off people, cut new hires, cut programs. I mean, actually started cutting back, and I don't really see any of that happening either. I mean, we're already paying our people more than any place else in the city. We have an incredibly healthy fund balance. We're paying a lot of good things, and I know you're never going to run out of money. I mean, or you're never going to run out of needs. I mean, we can always pump more money into the system. I mean, I think we can all agree with that. I'm teetering back and forth on, as a local government, heck, throw it out there and let the people decide, and if they want to pay more taxes towards the school district, that's their business. I mean, and that's the kind of school district they want, fantastic. On the other hand, I just don't know if I see a huge need of doing this right now, because I don't think we're in any kind of financial trouble. We have a good fund balance, good paid, well-paid employees. So I'm kind of teetering back and forth on that as to which direction to go. So I just want to make those comments and kind of make it clear on the fact that we do already have highly paid, compensated employees. We already have a pretty healthy fund balance, and for the most part, our budget looks pretty secure at this point.
Any other comments?
If we do a pay raise instead of a one-time bump, that needs to be more of a permanent, out of the permanent side of the budget, not out of the funding account.
It's a recurring cost. It would have to be built into the general operating budget.
So if we've heard people stand up and say, first thing they say is pay our teachers more, do we need to make that a serious thought and make it a permanent raise instead of a one-time bump?
Yeah, there was a decision 3 or 4 months ago to not do that for this coming year. That was settled in the budget parameter memo, and the rationale was to study it. We formed a budget committee and a salary and benefits committee, and at the same time, the consideration was to not build it into the schedule, but also to not give nothing, to make sure we give something. So that's where that one-time pay. And then 2 items from now, the language that Ms. Cannon went over last month was to give the board and myself the flexibility to study where we are in 2 or 3 months, once the kid count comes in and once we know where we are, and then make a determination then. Then I would really, Linda and I were talking, if I could sidebar to another agenda item, because we were talking today about I can't remember, the name of the committee is Salary and Benefit Committee, and Salary and Benefit, and then, I would think the Budget Committee would have to, be part of that, same dialogue. And a lot of the things that Mr. Westbrook, you saw at summer leadership, about what the board is studying, as I looked at that, and I'm not gonna lie, at first I looked at your email today and I thought, he knows this is a board day, why did he send this? And Dee Dee was sitting there and I was like, really? But then I thought, you know what? And Dee Dee and I were talking, I said, this is everything that the Salary and Benefit Committee needs to look at. So good for TASB for saying this is what trustees need to know, because it fits right in with what we're trying to do with the committee. So, and Mr. Chairman, that's a big old loop back around. That's a big part of what that is, and Jerry, to study, because quite frankly, what Mr. Emmons saying is right. We wound up at a certain place, and we did it without a target. No one said, be the highest. We just got there. So now, I don't know if the board is interested in setting a goal that's a written goal, that we want to be in the top quartile, not number 1, but don't let it fall out of the top quartile. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but maybe that's what comes out of this committee, I guess, Mr. Emmons, is what I'm saying. So Jerry, I just think that was settled a while back for it to be a one-time payment in our budget parameter memo.
Any other comments, concerns?
Well, I'll just throw it. Might as well. I'm kind of with Gary on this. I've been running back and forth. I've been running numbers in my head, looking at the past 10 years, past 12 years, past 15 years, where we were, where we are today, where we want to be going forward. As a community, we're a growing community. We have good schools. People are coming here about as fast as they can get here. Houses in this area don't last more than maybe 20 days on the market. So people are coming here for various reasons. One of the reasons to come here is good schools, but then you have to balance that with the taxes that we're paying in this area. And I don't know about anybody else up here aware of, but Like I always say, I mean, I've had my tail chewed a few times, even thinking about going for a tax rate increase when our property values are going up as fast as they can go. I mean, 10% per year is pretty substantial. Now, granted, the state does not provide any additional funds, and that is a huge, huge problem. That's something we have got to address with the state. That was the thing that came out. The counties of the state are in the same boat we are. They're getting unfunded mandates as fast as we are, if not worse. So you have a lot of local officials that hopefully will get together in the next legislative session and camp out in Austin and basically put as much pressure on them as they can. They've got an $8 to $10 billion rainy day fund that quite frankly has been built on not funding public education, not providing money to the counties that they should have been doing. So they're dumping it on us, dumping it on local school districts, dumping it on counties to say, okay, you come up with the money. We're going to dump all the unfunded mandates we can think of. You come up with the money. That's not fair. That's not fair to local taxpayers. That's not fair to anybody. So we've got to get 183 people in Austin, the governor, lieutenant governor, and 30 members of the Senate, 150 members of the House, to get off to collective dust and do what's right for the people of Texas. All that having been said, if we raise taxes, it's not just this year, it'll be every year thereafter. And I hate to tell everybody, it's not just the taxes you're going to pay on your home, it's the taxes you're going to pay every time you buy a good or a service and anything you do in this city or this area. Businesses don't pay taxes. You pay those taxes, but increase goods and services or reduce salaries or something. It comes back around. So when you start going down this road, be very careful raising taxes of any kind, because it will boomerang on you. And it makes our area less desirable because our prices are going up. If you think HEB or anybody else is not going to raise the price of that can of beans that you go to, think again. They are. They have to recoup that money somehow. And the way they do that is they raise prices. And that's just the way it is. If you look at the state of Illinois right now, they are in dire strait. Right now, the state of Texas has the 5th highest property taxes of any state in the country. And we're going to continue to raise property taxes. And that's from the Illinois, that's from the Chicago Fed. You can look it up. So we got to be very careful when we raise taxes to any degree whatsoever. So I just want everybody to understand that raising taxes is probably one of the things that we have the most. It's one of the things we have to be very careful of. The board has 3 things we really do: 1, taxes; 2, budgets; and number 3, hiring a superintendent. Those are 3 things we do that are the most important. So I just want everybody to understand what's out there. Thanks.
Any other comments or concerns?
Well, I was just going to say, I know we've talked about this for a while, and nobody wants their taxes raised, but as I look at some of these function details, roofing, we're just going to have to put that off, or we're going to go into the fund balance. That's, painting. I mean, some of those are maintenance issues that are going to come around. I mean, some of the upgrades, security upgrades that we were wanting to plan, and I'm thinking social workers, we'd like some additional. So some of these detailed things we have to think about as well, because some of those are reoccurring costs for people that we want in some of these details, at-risk staff and things like that, that we don't want to dip into the fund balance every year for, I want to get as much as we can out of Austin. I will say that. And this is the only way we can get that much, the most from Austin. That people keep, when I pay that property tax bill, you think all of that is going to us, but it's not all going to us, sadly. And so that the state has done a disservice for all of us, because we have to fight that. And I would look at that bill and think the same thing, unless you dig into the details of it. That's my thoughts.
Let me just ask you, I know several months ago it was proposed to possibly do a community survey on this whole topic or whatnot. And again, the premise was we can have conversations up here all day long, but what does the public feel or think about this whole topic? So, I mean, I'd just like to have a conversation about what feedback any of us have gotten over this whole topic. I mean, are people clamoring for this or against it, or nobody even knows what's happening? Or, I mean, generally speaking, what kind of public
Generally
feedback?
speaking, the people I talk to say go for it. And why are we only going for 2 cents? That's what I'm hearing.
Okay.
That's just a fact.
What I hear is if the only way to get it from the state is to go for those last 2 golden pennies, go for those last 2 golden pennies.
Anything else, Gary? Nope.
No.
It's, I think, at least for me, boils down to safety issue, and is there room for improvement? There's no doubt there's room for improvement. We've heard that we spend a lot of money on consultants. That's true. But we do have a budget committee to deal with that. And $10 million over what's required, $10 million seems like a lot until it's not. There's plenty of districts around us, including one neighboring one, that is searching that's $10 million, looking for a deficit of $10 million. I don't think we should wait until we're, till we're at 30 million and say, oh, now we need to run it. Now we need to pass a TRA. So safety issues, I know Governor Abbott's plan surrounds mental health professionals. We're gonna need mental health professionals. School safety, hardening the school itself, we're gonna need money. The legislature itself, according to what I've heard at TASB and others, they have little desire to do anything until school districts themselves do something. Then at the end of the day, Gary mentioned it, is what I'm leaning towards is choice. If I do vote for, the motion on the floor, it allows the citizens to make a choice. And they can come to a public meeting if and when we decide it, and they can voice their opinion one way or the other. And if there's 100 of them or 200 of them that disagree, at least we have some direction. But I think this is the vote, the way, the sort of path forward to give citizens options moving forward.
So let me just clarify that. So if we vote for this tonight, it's a proposed tax rate. That's not final in the books. We'll then turn right around and it looks like either mid-August or late August have a public hearing, and I guess that same night, then make a final vote, in other words, right? Is that the?
Well, that night, yeah, it does set the tax rate. Well, it sets the tax rate, which.
Yes.
I'm struggling with the word, but it creates the need for the election. That tax rate.
If it's beyond the $1.04,
Right.
yes.
What I'm saying tonight is simply a vote to propose possibly $1.06.
Right.
It's not setting the $1.06, it's just proposing it.
Right, and I guess I was going, I misheard.
We then will have a public hearing in August,
Yes.
and that'll either be middle of August or late August, it looks like.
Yep.
And that same night, after the public hearing, we'd then have a final vote on whether or not we're gonna do the $1.06.
We would approve the budget first. That's the way Truth and Taxation works, and then we would approve the tax rate.
And that's.
Then it goes to the vote of the public.
Right, then that
Yes.
Initiates a tax ratification election, and part of what, I apologize a while ago, Mr. Chairman, I was jumping ahead that we will not spend it. I thought you were saying it's not approved until November. We're not going to spend these funds just because the board approves, sets the tax rate. In fact, Paige, you might go through that again. You're setting.
Well, and I have attached to them, should we go forward with the proposed of $1.06 tonight, I have the kind of printout of the agenda items that would be required at the public meeting and the setting of the tax rate.
How are you, if the voters have not authorized
No.
that, how are you going to keep the district staff from spending the additional $4 million?
No one's going to have access. It'll be, in fact, we aren't even going to put it, we've talked about it this week, we're not even going to put it in object codes. We're going to put it in the function, just as a 6XXX. And what you'll be presented is what the budget would look like at what the budget's going to look like at $1.06, but with the incremental increase that the 2 cents will generate from $1.04 to $1.06. It'll be a separate column with a specific amount for, because you approved the function level.
Is everybody under the understanding that tonight we need an affirmative vote from a minimum of 5 trustees for this motion to pass? So if there's any other comments or concerns?
I just had a thought. The truth in taxation. If tonight the 106 were to pass, we're going to issue public notice of 106.
Yes. For a proposed tax rate.
Proposed, okay. And if it later on, that goes back the other way, or vice versa, it could still go, we can go either way. Then at that point in time, have we violated the truth in taxation? Because we're talking about two different things if we flip.
No, and I have been I've been in consultation with Moak and Casey on this. This was one of the areas I'm like, okay, wait a minute. If you have to approve the budget first prior to setting the tax rate, we will prepare the budget at $1.06 because we have to for truth in taxation. It has to be prepared in that way. And so my question was, do we have to bring an item back that night if we set at $1.04 and we've just approved this budget at $1.06? Would we have to come back that night and change it? The answer to that is no. We could bring it back even in January. We aren't going to do that, but you could bring it back for a budget amendment to take that out.
Okay.
So all of the sub-objects, yeah, that she didn't spend, and Mr. Finley, that's kind of what I was getting at.
The piece of the pie, if you will.
Okay, so, but if 104 were to go, then we're locked in there, we can't
Yes.
modify. So from the 106 perspective, this is not a final. From the 104, it would be.
It's just the sequence of
Right.
events. You have to,
You can go down, but you can't go up.
right.
So effectively, 104 tonight would be a final vote, because you can't put tax.
Oh, yeah, no, if it's proposed at $1.04, this is it. There's no, if it goes in the paper at that, that's what the budget's built on.
Correct.
What's our overall budget again? About one overall budget amount? 130 or something?
M&O, next year I think it's 112 million.
12, okay. So, the 4 million is roughly 3 to 3.5% of the overall budget, you could say, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Oh, I'm sorry, with the $1.06, it would be about 116, yeah.
Yeah, so we're overall, give or take, we're talking 3 to 3.5% of the budget,
Yes,
whether
sir.
you have it or don't have it, in a sense.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And when we put it in that little pie that shows the whole budget, it's really tiny. It's not that, to your point.
If we go with $1.06 tonight, let's say it does get the vote, but then we don't get the 5 on August the 16th or whatever, we are still going to be paying out some money after tonight if we did go with $1.06 to start preparing everything, correct?
Yes, we will pay the attorneys to do the language and set up, many of the items, and you'll see for the meeting, have to do with setting the election with Bear, setting the election, or calling the election with Guadalupe, and we would have to seek counsel or we have sought counsel for that, should we go with $1.06.
Any other questions, comments, concerns before we take a vote? All those in favor of the motion, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Yep. Motion failed. They did not receive the 5 votes. We need another motion.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve a proposed maintenance and operation tax rate of $1.04 and a proposed entrance and sinking tax rate of 45 cents for the 2018-2019 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So if we think security is a priority issue, and we want to go and hire somebody to be in charge of security and safety for this district, we have said we can afford it. We took it out of a vote 2 board meetings ago. Do we still feel that same way?
I think there's enough out there right now that we don't know what the state's gonna do. We have no idea what the legislature's gonna do next legislative session. We really need to go back and look at, let the budget committee do their job over the next year and make the decisions that we need to make for the next year, and then come back. I'll give you something for you, and you'll appreciate this. My vote tonight is for 1 year. 1 year. If we go through the process, the legislature does absolutely nothing, or whatever they want to do, and we go back and we have done everything we can with the budget, we know that there's nothing else to get out, then my vote will switch next year. I'll vote for it. What I'm asking at this point in time is let's let the budget process, we should have done the budget process beforehand, go through and make sure our programs are as lean as they can, but we should have done this ahead of time. I remember, and if anybody would think about it, back in 1988, then candidate Bush went to the Republican National Convention, and he asked for, and he said, no new taxes, read my lips. 1990, the Democrats go to the president and say, look, we'll give you $3 of cuts for every $1 in tax increase. The president went right along with it, said, sure, that's fine. We gave him the tax increase. The cuts never came, the reductions never came. That's why I'm just simply asking at this point in time, let's go through the budget process. Let's do for the next year and make sure where we're at. We can live for 1 year. And the next year, if we've done everything we can do, there is nothing else, legislature does nothing, then you'll get your 5th vote right here.
I have to just add one thing. We went through the budget process this year. In fact, we had extra meetings. So I would hate for anyone watching one little snippet of this to think that for some reason we didn't follow the budget process. We had a robust budget process this year.
Well, and if you've been on this board any amount of time and you don't think that every program we have is lean, then you haven't been paying attention. And I don't mean you specifically, I'm just saying. The other thing is that we know that we're not going to get a dime from the legislature if we don't do something about this ourselves. They've told us that. They're going to be in session this year. They're not going to be in session next year. So what's that mean? We can wait a year, set it next year, and then get nothing from them for another year. So that's 3 years basically that we're talking about. So that's something else you can think about.
Mr. Finley, I want to just make sure that I'm clear. I am only talking about the process. The staff will respect the vote of the board. I want to make sure you know that. So I'm just talking about the process comment, that's all.
Quick question, just so I understand it. I know we've already voted, but does it have to, one of these decisions have to be made tonight for a proposed budget? Either the 104 or 106 has to be made tonight?
Yes. To do truth and taxation, yes, we have to have it in the paper so that the public can see what the proposed tax rate is going to be, so they will know that it could trigger an election.
So you could have done 6 and dropped it to 4, but you can't do 4 and raise it to 6.
And
exactly.
Just for clarification, you can't do, and I don't understand the truth and taxation, you can't publish both of them and say these are the two, we're having a public hearing?
No, sir.
No.
I'm back to the discussion of safety. We discussed hiring somebody to be in charge of security and safety for the entire district, and we didn't think we could afford it, so we took it off the list. I don't think we can wait a year to make that decision again. Is it important enough to us to bring that back?
Yeah, I don't know if we have a choice now, but we're only one event away before this whole room will be packed full of parents screaming for security, safety issues, concerns, and modifying the budget. At this point in time, I guess we move forward. There is a budget committee. If we're lean, we'll get leaner, we'll get done. No matter what, I do believe that this district We'll get better, and we'll get through it. I wish the motion would have passed, but I have faith in Dr. Gibson and his staff, and we'll make some lean cuts, but I do think this might require some modifications in expectations moving forward for Dr. Gibson and his goals, and even for the district and staffing. I think we should understand that.
Mr. Webster, let me just say, just for the record then, because since there's implication that if you didn't vote for this, then you're not for improved safety and security of our students, which nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, I think we all care about the safety and security of our students. I said this before the vote. My vote no is based on the fact that I think we are incredibly healthy financially today. We have an incredibly healthy fund balance. We are already one of the highest paying school districts in the area, and 85+% of our budget goes towards personnel. I just didn't see a need for a tax rate increase at this point, given that I think we do have other options. But I, for one, do think safety and security of our students is a high priority. So just for the record.
And I'm not trying to say we're not, I'm just saying maybe we should bring that discussion back. We voted it, or we decided not to vote on it 2 boards ago. Maybe we should reconsider.
If I'm correct, we decided to eliminate that position and in return to use that money to hire 2 additional SROs, correct?
Yeah, I was about to say that,
Yeah,
so, yeah, and
so
that's already been done.
Yeah. So that position was eliminated to hire 2 SROs, 2 more police officers.
All right. The ball is now in the Budget and Finance Committee. We'll move forward. It didn't turn out the way some of us would have liked, but at the end of the day, we're still, like Gary said, we're still in a good situation financially. We'll have to get leaner. And they're still positive. There's still great things that this district is going to move forward and do. So if there's no other comments, concerns, we have a motion and a second, so we need to take a vote. Any other comments or concerns? All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. We have 4. Motion passes 4-3. Now let's have the approval. Next we can have the request for board action, adoption of employee compensation package for school year 2018-2019 presented by request for, we still have to have it? There's no.
Yeah.
Request for board action, public meeting date to discuss budget and proposed tax rate presented by Paige Maloney.
Okay, considering we just did the proposed rate at $1.04, the second motion with the correction of setting the tax rate rather than settling. So it'll be the second agenda item in the attachment. Disregard everything after the first page. And on the action item at the bottom, adoption of the budget, just leave that, and I'll send it out for August 30th at $1.04. And we also will attach an action item of the final amended budget will be ready on that date as well.
So the appropriate motion would be the second one? Yes. And that's on page 185?
Yes, the second motion, you may cross the first one. It was based on the $1.06, we would have had to have had the meeting prior to August 20th. So we're going to go with the August 30th so we can do final amended budget on the same night.
Sure. In that case, I move that the Board of Trustees approve Thursday, August 30th, 2018 at 6 p.m. In the boardroom of the Schertz-Cibolo-Universal City ISD Administration Building as the date for a public meeting to discuss the 2018-19 school year budget and proposed tax rate. The board will then convene into a special called board meeting for the purpose of adopting the 2018-2019 school year budget and setting the tax rates for the 2018-2019 school year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed, motion passes 7-0. Request for board action, adoption of employee compensation package for school year 2018-2019 presented by Linda Cannon.
Yes, the compensation package, our compensation package includes wage and salary structures and stipends. We did bring this as a discussion item in June. But if you're looking at the compensation package that we've put together for this year, there are no changes to the dollar amounts for the pay schedules in the compensation package for this year. I did previously give you the stipend changes that we have made. This page is being passed out to you because there was a correction on that very first one, the assistant athletics coordinator. I believe in the package posted in your board packet, it said 14,000, and that was actually for 2 of them. So it should be 7,000 per school. So that's the only change to the package that's actually in your board packet. The rest of the stipends are as they were, as I passed them out, I think, last month at the board meeting. The one addition to this board packet that is different than any other year is the one-time lump sum, spelling out the expectations of that. It's on page 11 of the compensation package or page 199 of the board book. And what that does is identifies the possibility of the superintendent recommending and the board approving a one-time lump sum compensation and the eligibility for employees should the board determine that the financial resources are adequate at that time. So this would allow us to come back at a different time and once we have students here and looking at the budget to see if we have the financial resources to provide that one-time lump sum. So that would be brought back to the board for approval. So that basically spells out how we would identify who are our employees that would receive that one-time lump sum.
Just to clarify, that is not written into the budget. That would be a fund balance pool, possibly.
Could be.
Yeah, it could depend, I mean.
Depends on the but right
number
now,
of kids.
on
The
our budget
number of kids now is pretty
expectation.
much the only variable left, because TRE so it's number of kids that come. And let's just say we got 500 kids more than what we expected, and we balanced that out, and we came back to you all and we hired X amount of more teachers. There could be, depending on where the kids were before you started that hiring, revenue left over after that, I guess.
Correct.
But it should, I guess, be stated that generally speaking, more kids, more staff to teach them.
That's correct.
Okay.
I think there was one thing on the stipends that was different from last month was the webmasters. Are those not in there now? Or am I missing that?
They should be in there, but if they're not, they need to be.
No, it's not in there. It would be on page 33, I believe, of the compensation packet, or 221 of our board packet. I'm assuming that's where they'd be. Unless I missed it.
I don't see them, but we do want those in the compensation package for this next year to help with our website rollout and making sure at the campus and department levels that there is somebody that can help us work on that for this next year and beyond.
They were in the previous document, is that correct?
They were in the previous document.
They were in our discussion items for last month.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they're not in, I didn't know if we got rid of them.
So that's a stipend amount? Do you know what that is?
Here it is from last month.
Linda, would you do this, please? In light of that, let us do executive session and not have the board take action on this just yet, and y'all lay that last month and this out side by side.
Yes.
And does that sound all right, Amy, and go through that, and then we'll let.
I didn't know if we removed them from our last discussion.
They're not there, so we did, but it was unintentional.
That's correct. We can get that corrected.
Yeah,
real
so
quick.
it'll 30 minutes, we'll be back, and y'all just go through there again and just lay them out side by side.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me ask you, I know we spent a lot of time talking about teacher salaries and whatnot, but stipends, we don't give a whole lot of, as much time to, I guess I should say, but how competitive are these in relation to our, local districts, and do we have a hard time keeping coaches or recruiting coaches and other people involved in extracurricular activities? I mean, I've always heard ours are a little bit low based on some of our competitors, but do you have a general sense of where we fit?
Well, these are reviewed in our TASB salary studies. The last time we had one 3 years ago, we did include stipends with that. And so that that time, they would have made any recommendations. Probably depending on the stipend, some may be higher than others in the area, some may be a little bit lower. I don't believe we have a recruiting problem with it. Sometimes our coaches leave because they have opportunities to become head coaches elsewhere, where we aren't in the need for a head coach at that point in time.
We've done 2 TASB salary studies since I've been here, or 3. And my recollection is, and I'll double check this last one was the most amount of stipend modification of those 3. And it was based on the feedback. We asked them to really drill in deep. I think you and Mr. Pivito at that time, that's what comes to mind. We're stressing that. And we translated that to TASB. Anyway, we made a pretty substantial change to stipends on the last one.
And if we hear of any concerns or there's recommendations from Coach Lindhoff or any of the other coaches that to take a look at those, we do have access to the TASB HR. They do a stipend survey. And so those districts that participate in that, we're able to pull that information to see what they are paying.
So I guess you could also argue that if you're a teacher/coach in our district, which I guess most of them are, I mean, you're getting a higher base salary than many of our competitors, even though
Correct.
the stipend may or may not be as much as a competing district, in other words. I mean,
That's
your overall
correct.
compensation ends up being fairly competitive. Yeah.
Hey, just from my knowledge, and I think I know the answer, but if you're a volleyball coach, you get 7,000. If you're a soccer head coach, you get 6,000. A cross country, 5,000. Is that based on like the length of the season? Is that-
Typically, it is based on the length of the season.
Okay, so that's where typically where $1,000 because there's one season.
How many practice weeks and how many events.
Got it.
Yeah, the stipend structures have generally taken form from the calendar year, the UIL calendar year for that event, with the typical number of practice days, the timeout of the normal day, so to speak, and that's kind of where these stipends evolve from. So they've tried to use that kind of formula when they've looked at these in the past, and I think they're pretty competitive. Ours are, I think, pretty competitive, really.
The only other question I have, and it's just more for my knowledge, is the like assistant athletic coordinator for high school is 7,000, and obviously high school is a lot more involved. And I get that, involved, excuse me. But the athletic coordinator for junior high is the assistant 650. Just so I understand it, they're still having to coordinate football, baseball, basketball, volleyball, track. Why is there such a huge gap between those two?
I think a lot of it has to do with the number of sports
Mhm.
that there are at the 2 different levels. There's also been a need at the junior high level for somebody to help with the girls' athletics.
For somebody to what?
Help with the girls' athletics. The head is typically in charge of the male sports, and they're helping with assist with the girls' athletics as well. But there's a need to have just an additional person to kind of help support that.
Right. I guess I'm just, and I may just be looking into it too much, I'm sure I am, but basically 7,000 to almost 700 for the same position at different levels, but I mean, is there that big of a difference in their job?
Well, these were recommendations from Coach Lindhoff,
Yeah.
and so I believe that these are pretty accurate for this
Yeah.
year as to where we need them to be.
Okay.
But no matter, I guess according to the compensation package, the superintendent does have the ability to adjust individual equity adjustments, just in case you ever found them. In case there
Yes.
was any, equity,
Correct.
yeah.
Well, I would
superintendent.
think the high school assistant athletic coordinator would be on the female side of the activities, because you're talking the different activities that the female athletes have at our high schools, plus you do have varsity, junior varsity, sophomore, that sort of thing. So you're talking about more teams,
Correct.
more just more activities. And so I think that might have something to do with the high school assistant athletic director coordinator. I would think would be more used toward the female side of it for Title IX and that sort of thing. And that junior high, you have an A and B team basically for
There are some
volleyball,
C, but-
basketball,
yeah.
for girls sports, and they have track. Track is just kind of amalgamation of everybody does
Everybody
track.
helping out.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion? What was this? What was it?
Yeah, I'm
Oh, we're
asking
saving
to
it for after the
wait.
executive session?
Yeah, and Linda, so you'll need to come into executive, I'll tell you what.
I can have Nina help us work on this while.
Why don't, I'll go ahead and do the formative though, and y'all
Mhm.
do that, and then you come after the formative. That's kind of in different order, and that way y'all can do that right now.
Okay.
So we'll start my formative, actually, we'll conclude my formative, and I'll come get Linda, and she can finish. And it shouldn't take probably 15 minutes for the
All right.
formative.
This board will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.074, authorization to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or to hear a complaint or charge against an officer or employee. The time is now 8:07.
And, yeah, we're in the
Time is now 9 o'clock. The board will reconvene from closed session for action relative to... Oh. Request for board action adoption of employee compensation package for school year 2018-2019 presented by Linda Cannon.
Yes, the compensation package includes our wages and salary structures, stipends, and also includes this year for the one-time lump sum payment.
Yeah.
187,
188.
188.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the attached, or the one we were given, employee compensation package for the 2018-2019 school year as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimous. Next, request for board action, employment of contractual personnel presented by Linda Cannon.
The positions on the employment list as presented in closed session are replacing positions for the 18-19 school year and will be funded from the 18-19 general operating budget.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the employment list as presented of contractual personnel for the 2018-2019 school year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Request for board action, employment of associate principal for Samuel Clemens High School, presented by Linda Cannon.
The position of the associate principal for Samuel Clemens High School is replacing a budgeted position for the 18-19 school year and will be funded from the 18-19 general operating budget.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the employment of associate principal for Samuel Clemens High School for the 2018-2019 school year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Request for board annual consideration and possible action regarding superintendent contract revisions presented by Robert Westbrook. Is there a motion? Well, we discussed some stuff in closed session, and now I need a motion.
I move that we approve the superintendent's contract with the exception that we delete in full item number 17.
Second.
Been a motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Board items for review and discussion. Mr. Perkins?
Sorry, thanks. August 9th, we have a called board meeting, a workshop for the team of 8. And if I'm not mistaken, it's here, not at, the Board of 8 is, the meeting is here, not at District 20 or Region 20.
Is everybody going to be able to show up? That's a team of 8, right?
I'm pretty sure that Priscilla went out and checked to make sure that everybody could make it. Because she checked with me. And I was probably the last one to respond, so I'm sure that you guys all got it taken care of before I did. On August 16th, we have a called meeting to adopt the budget as we... Oh, disregard. I thought we still were gonna
Well, that's based on the vote.
Right, I thought but I thought we still had to do it. And then we have a regular meeting on the 21st. And I have the agenda here, and it's pretty standard. Same agenda that we see routinely, and we've discussed the items today that will be on approval next time. For calendar events, we have SCUCI-University Day, no, SCUCU Day. I had it right. Thursday and Friday, August 9th and 10th, 8:30 to 4:30, to 4 o'clock, I'm sorry. and if I'm not mistaken, we're invited to come by.
Yes.
Greater Chamber of New Braunfels luncheon is August 9th at 11:30. Texas Tri-County luncheon is August 14th at 11:30. Convocation is August 16th at Steele Auditorium, 8 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. And first day of school is on Monday, August 20th. The chamber luncheon for Schertz-Cibolo-Universal Selma is August 21st at 11:15. I think that's enough.
Well, do the committee, those two committees.
Oh, yeah, so we have a staffing, salary, and benefits committee Wednesday, August 1st at 6 p.m. and a budget committee Wednesday, August 15th at 5:30 p.m.
And Linda, if you will, remind me, because I didn't do it, because it was very late in the day, that list from Mr. Westbrook will be a good starting place for that salary and benefit, well, for salary and benefit.
There's one other item. TASB said that on September 13th, there is a safety summit. So they're inviting, obviously, school board members, safety personnel, emergency management. So I thought it'd be a good idea, maybe if you let, I'll give Dr. Gibson the little flyer. But if Sergeant Mixon, Lieutenant Mixon,
Well,
for
this
Schertz.
Wednesday at 10 a.m., we have an EPAC meeting, so we'll just
I'll give you
announce it
the-
to the group if you can get, that's tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah, if you can get it to me before
I'll send
tomorrow
you-
at
I can-
10 a.m.,
will
we'll
do.
share it with the group.
Say the date again.
September, yes,
September 13th?
yes. Safety Summit in Austin, Texas, hosted by TASB. So,
Mr.
law
Westbrook?
enforcement, emergency management.
August 6th, it's not on the calendar. It is the new hire orientation. Board members do attend that or have in the past. It's going to be at Cibolo Valley, so just, we'll put that on the calendar and send an information out to you.
What
as
time?
an email.
Breakfast is from 8 to 8:30, and then we're starting right at 8:30.
Okay. So I show up at 8:15 and leave at 8:29, or?
If you'd like.
Okay. Thank you. All right, thank you. See, we do have fun. We do have fun. Anything else? Any other comments, questions, concerns? I guess we can have a motion to adjourn, or? All right, thank you very much. We're adjourned at 9:07.